So in the late 1920s and early 1930s, there were no real airline attendants like today. It was like the co-pilot's job to look over the passengers. Now he was always a man, he would help them get into their seats, put their bags away, and during the flight, if they needed assistance, the pilot would leave the cockpit and help them with whatever they needed, which was super nice. But I'd be like, hey, didn't you have to fly the plane? I don't know. It's kind of sketchy, but customer service was great back then, I guess. And yeah, this was always a man. At this time, women were not allowed to work on these booby bouncer planes. Completely inappropriate. I say that because I was driving the other day. This is a side note. I was driving the other day and there was this older gentleman who had a bumper sticker on his car that said booby bouncer. And I was like, oh. Anyways, so I had to use it because I thought it was funny. Kind of gross, but whatever. Good for that guy. So booby bouncer, no women, no. But this is when Ellen Church enters the chat. Okay, so Ellen, she's born in 1904 in Iowa, and she was just a small town girl with big dreams. She grew up right at the dawn of flying. And during the summer, her favorite thing to do was to go to the local fair and watch the plane demonstrations. She's like, wow, it's so cool. Ellen made it her life goal to one day fly a plane. Problem, though, was that Ellen was a woman. Yeah, and women don't fly planes. Sorry. Amelia Earhart, we know her, hopefully, yes. She wasn't even a household name yet. Which, side note, let me know, should we do an episode on Amelia Earhart? Let me know down below. So instead, Ellen becomes a nurse, which is great, but it's not exactly what she wants to do. Eventually, she moves to San Francisco to work at a hospital, and I guess one of the perks of being in San Francisco was that she could take flying lessons. The other perk of being in San Francisco? That's where the Boeing headquarters was at. So one day in 1930, Ellen walks in and she asks for a job with their airline. Now, at first, the manager's like, no, women can't fly planes, But then, according to the New York Times, Ellen says, quote, don't you think it would be a good psychology to have a woman up in the air? How is a man going to say he is afraid to fly when a woman is working on the plane? He's like, I don't know what he's thinking. But the manager thinks for a second. And he's like, well, we were going to start hiring someone to take care of the passengers like they've done in Europe. So can you do that? And boom, Ellen gets hired as a stewardess. She's pretty much creating this job right here. Now, on top of that, they saw it beneficial to have her on board just in case there was an emergency and they needed her medical skills. Because she's a nurse, So she was a stewardess / airplane nurse. But there was a catch. Boeing tells Ellen she can only have the job if she finds 7 other women nurses to do it with her. Passengers were getting motion sickness and many were just nervous, right? So they thought it would bring comfort to have a mother-like figure on the plane. It'd be adding a sense of security to the people. Plus, again, if there was an emergency, nurse. Now, I don't know how Ellen finds 7 other women on short notice, but she does, okay? And she was determined. So Boeing tells her that this is probably just temporary, that they would try this idea out for 3 months, see how it goes. And, I'm not making any promises. So Ellen agrees, and she gets her crew together, and on May 15th, 1930, the 8 women take off on their first flight from San Francisco to Chicago, with one stop in Wyoming to refuel. Ooh, exciting. The flight would take just 20 hours to complete. That's it. That's great. So during the flight, the women would take care of the passengers. If they got sick, they would help them with the luggage and seating. They passed out food, which was usually a cold sandwich or maybe some cold fried chicken, I guess when the plane would stop to refuel, the flight attendants, they would go run to the nearest restaurant and grab food for the passengers. And yeah, sometimes it would be cold, but hey, it was still food, they were making it work. I wish they would have like McDonald's on the flight. Why don't they do that? Like, why doesn't McDonald's partner with airlines? I just want fries when I'm flying, I don't know. I think about that. Like fast food companies, you think they would partner with airlines, right? No? Okay, never mind. I'm getting off track. That's not the point. Food is on planes. Another thing these women were responsible for, well, keeping people in their seats. And no, I'm not talking about making sure they didn't walk around. Apparently, there was so much turbulence on these planes, people's seats would come unscrewed all the time. So, the women had to make sure that the seats were screwed down into the plane at all times. So I guess they'd be walking around with some extra screws just in case. Anyways, these ladies, they really proved themselves during this temporary trial. Ellen and the other women really did make passengers feel better, and they just had like a better experience. Now the pilot, they were like depending on these stewardesses in order to have a smooth flight, everything go smoothly and according to plan. So other American airlines decided to copy Boeing and add their own full-time stewardess. And then another war rolled around. And just like with the last war, well, if you don't know, it's World War II, okay? It comes. Just like the last war, now there were even more like advancements in airplane technology. So they made like better planes and stuff to fight in the war, and that really created the opportunity for more commercial flights to be better and more advanced. The time from around 1940 to about 1960, this became known as the Golden Age of Flying. Golden! If you're listening on the podcast, I'm wearing a golden airplane pin. They always dress up, so I got a pin. Shut up. Anyways, look, okay, Golden Age of Flying, great. We love that. But there was still room for improvement, you could say. Because airlines, yeah, okay, they're flying, that's great, but like they didn't know how to entertain passengers because it was just like a long, boring flight and they didn't have any stimulation, just sitting there, farting. Like there was nothing, it was just like they needed something to do. So they were brainstorming. So some companies decided to put art on the walls inside of the plane, which is so funny to me. I mean, that probably even helped the rich people feel even more bougie. They're like, I'm on a plane and in a museum. Is that the Mona Lisa? Oh, champagne, please. Just fancy. It also became popular for a while to give passengers postcards to write while they flew, which is cute. I mean, the postcards would have an image of like the plane on it or a picture of the destination, like where they were going. So they're like, here, write something. Like the idea was to write to their loved ones. And then once you landed, you could mail it. I'm not sure how well it did because, I mean, I'm thinking over here that the postcards probably were written all shaky because of the turbulence. You're like, dear mom, But it's the thought that counts. I mean, other than that, you got art on the wall. You can write a postcard. Many would pass the time by lighting up their favorite cigarette or cigar. Have a smoke while in the air. Oh, yes. The life of the rich and the glamorous. Secondhand smoke for everyone. God, it must have been stinky in there. Everyone's eyes are burning. You come out smelling your... when you're like around a lot of smoke and your hair stinks and you're like, it's not a wash day. But now it has to be a wash day because my hair smells, That's annoying. It's an inconvenience. Anywho, but everyone smoked. Great. Looking at art, writing postcards. It was a good time. Still, flying was considered dangerous. The ride was bumpy. The food was cold. The air was smoky. I mean, besides getting to your destination quicker, was there anything else that made people want to fly? Well, I'm glad you asked. The answer, when we come back. A big reason why people loved flying so much was because of the alcohol. I'm sure, and like getting to your destination is pretty cool. And the fact that you're flying through the air, it's pretty wild when you think about it. Sometimes when I'm on a plane, God, I hate flying. I really do. I'll start thinking like, oh my God, I'm literally in the sky, in the air, and I'm not supposed to be here. And then I spiral, and then I usually have a panic attack. And then you know what the flight attendants do? If they see me, they can tell I'm having a panic attack, and they'll be like, do you need something to drink? And I'm like, yeah. That's happened a couple times. They could see that I'm terrified. And they've given me free alcohol, which was really nice of them. I really appreciated that. Anyways, alcohol. Great. So at this point, airlines, they started to add open bars to the planes, and it was encouraged to drink your way through the flight. So this way, if you've got to sit in a cold, shaky metal tube that stops constantly, at least you'll be relaxed and not care if the plane goes down in a fiery blaze. So people would get sloshed, is what I'm getting at. Side note, is it? Kinda. Well, once airplanes were able to like heat the cabins, I guess flight attendants, they used to jack up the heat so that the drunk people would just pass out. And honestly, it was a great idea. I don't know, you see all these TikToks and stuff of people acting all wild on airplanes and like being assholes. Were they like that back then? That's what I was trying to figure out. Or were they like drunk with manners? Because people now are drunk and messy. Were they drunk and messy back then? Or were they drunk and classy? The research I should have looked up. But people were getting drunk. You get it. That's the point. Flying was like one long happy hour. I mean, over in Germany, they had, and they still have, an airline called Lufthansa, and they took happy hour to a whole new level. So in the 60s, you know, they were trying to rehab their image after World War II, because if you were a German company, chances are you were still being associated with Nazis. Fair. So they wanted to rebrand a little. So they had their flight attendants dress up in those traditional beer maiden outfits, and they served special Oktoberfest beer. Kind of love that, right? I don't know. So at this point, it seems like planes are becoming more accessible to everyday people. I mean, you still had to have money to fly, but it wasn't as expensive as it used to be. But, you know, that doesn't mean everyone was welcome. For people of color, flights were usually just as racist as being on the ground. They were usually made to sit in a different section of the plane than the white passengers. For example, if you were black and you tried to buy a plane ticket over the phone, companies trained their employees to profile a person. And if the phone operator thought you were black, they would put you on like a specific flight. That wasn't the only problem. The flight attendants, they could kick you off the plane for any reason at any point. Ella Fitzgerald, you know her, a world famous jazz singer, she actually had this happen to her. In 1954, she was flying from San Francisco to Sydney, Australia. She was on tour and she was like going to Australia to do a performance. Ella was black, and the staff on the plane, they took note.